Can you feel the energy of life flowing through your organism? Do you allow the energy of life to fully flow through every cell of the organism? Are you conscious of what the energy of life feels like? Are you in direct contact with the power of life that keeps your body alive, healthy, and functioning at optimal capacity? Or do you block the flow? Do you limit it? Do you repress it? Do you have fear of too much life? Do you allow yourself to be bathed in the life energy? Do you know the source of the life energy? To know the life energy fully requires that you have attained a position in consciousness that contains the life energy. That your power of presence allows the full flow of infinite eternal life through itself. But that which witnesses life is that which the ego fears as death. And so to be fully alive is to unify the power of life with the power of death. To realize they are one. And can you feel the power of eternal life in that dimension that is deeper within than the physical organism? Can you feel the power of life as it emerges from the pure source of being? And do you enter into that source that is our supreme being and allow your awareness to be saturated with the energy of infinite, immortal life? This energy of life, in its pure form of divine light, carried by presence, is itself blissful. And the power of life is the same power that we call love. We call it love when it enters into the organism and is transmitted outward, and it touches those forms, presences that make up the world of experience. And whatever that energy of life touches directly is felt as a relation of love. But when there is fear of life, fear of too much energy, whether emitted from within or received from without, then there is contraction and defense against the stimulation of life and love. And the fear that it will become desire, and that would lead to an acting out of impulses of the ego that since childhood have been starved of love and life that was not received from the other. And because that starved sense of a self that was made to feel unworthy of love and life, those defenses against life create the sense of shame. The ego loves the sense of shame. Because only the feeling of shame is strong enough to cover over and repress the power of infinite life. When there is no fear of life, when life has been allowed to overwhelm and dissolve the ego structures, then shame and all its derivatives of guilt, frustration, anger, envy, the whole cascade of dominoes of egoic negative emotive states and affects falls away. what remains is simply the blissful being that is eternal life itself, which is all that we are. It is what we are, whether embodied or disembodied. And that realization of the divine, blissful, luminous power that is life and love needs nothing, wants nothing, fears nothing, but shines with absolute independence, absolute power, absolute authority and sovereignty, because that power is primary, and the world is simply a secondary field in which the projection of that energy takes form as a world that reflects back to the source its true nature. It is when we have lost our understanding that the self is the source of life and love, and that it has no lack, nor could there be anything it could gain that it is not already. That the power of true equanimity and peace and love emanate without distortion or contamination by any subtle egoic manipulations or desire for a power that it does not know it already has. It is in that realization of the bliss of being that life itself morphs into the field of beauty and goodness and joy. That emerge as the perfect reflection of its own properties, of intelligence, of creative power, and the absolute openness to share in the realization of the oneness of that supreme power that you are, manifesting equally through every being. This one power of infinite life, infinite presence, without barrier, without boundary, without alienation, and with the full appreciation of the perfection, the divinity, and the eternal goodness of each being, regardless of how that may have been covered over by egoic fears and structures of defense. Enable that supreme power to reach everywhere without obstruction. Light sees only light. When there is no darkness being projected, none will be perceived. And the power of light is inherently victorious over the illusion of darkness. Once the unification of the transcendent presence in which life is carried into the field of being, by that supreme power that is the death of death, the death of fear, the death of temporality, of change, because perception emerges from the changeless, immortal being of pure life, then that principle of life creates a divine order that establishes peace and harmony at every level of world, of mind, of being. And because the supreme power that rules the divine order is silent, timeless presence, there is no need for thought. There is no need for language. There is no need to interrupt the space in which all is included as a single whole. And in the space of silence, the recognition of perfection is established as the nature of our being, here and now and always. The duty of a Satyogi is simply to sustain that purity of the flow of life and love without contamination by an ego fragment that remains in fear of too much energy, too much power, too much light, too much greatness, too much beauty. And allow all of that to be free. And to abide as the source that is the infinite self that we all share as a single whole, and of which we are all manifest forms. May we learn to care properly for this infinite power we have been given, and learn to use it for the healing of the world through the wisdom and the receptivity to the full potency of that power by living in a state of surrender to that one source which we never leave, never forget, never disconnect from, and always realize we are that.